25 years ago, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon broke through in the United States. The Ang Lee film starring Michelle Yeoh and Chow grossed $128 million during its North American run, in an era when a foreign language film was a hit if it grossed $10 million. Why did Crouching Tiger break through? Lee's film broke through after Chinese films created a global and U.S. audience over the preceding 4 decades for Crouching Tiger's story. In this video, let's talk about the cinema lineage that led to Crouching Tiger's success. I view this lineage as 4 often intersecting pathways: martial arts films, including wuxia films, Hong Kong cinema, especially the Hong Kong New Wave in the 1980s and 1990s, the 5th generation of filmmakers from China, and Taiwanese New Wave cinema. Martial arts cinema has always existed since cinema came to China and Asia. Martial arts storytelling comes from novels and written narratives prior to cinema. Traditional Chinese opera forms such as Beijing opera and Cantonese opera feature martial arts choreography and acrobatics that inspired these early films. In fact, Jackie Chan trained as a Beijing opera performer. A lot of countries across East Asia made martial arts films inspired by their own traditional stories, theater forms, and practices. As one country made films, others saw and made their own versions of them. Akira Kurosawa's samurai films particularly influenced many filmmakers as they evolved the visual language of combat to include slow motion and cuts between multiple angles. For filmmakers in Hong Kong like Chang Che and in Taiwan like King Yeoh, Kurosawa's films provided a template they could adapt for Chinese stories. Working with Shaw Brothers Studio in Hong Kong, these filmmakers made landmark films in the 1960s and 1970s such as Come Drink With Me and The One-Armed Swordsman. These Hong Kong-based martial arts films varied from more contemporary settings in kung fu films like The Big Boss with Bruce Lee and wuxia films in a historical and fantastical setting like King Hu's A Touch of Zen. Wuxia often includes story elements like romance, wirework, and historical setting. Wuxia films like A Touch of Zen would influence Crouching Tiger heavily. Hu's 1970s film earned international acclaim in its story about a scholar partnering with a fugitive to fight a warlord. What many audiences miss from seeing these classic films, especially in dubbed versions, are their subversive and rebellious context. These films often tell stories about the oppressed rebelling against oppressors. Filmmakers told these stories in a world questioning authority, and in places like Hong Kong that navigated between a difficult Cold War and colonial context. While these martial arts films came from places like Japan and Thailand, Hong Kong became the fulcrum, and these martial arts films paved the way for Hong Kong's film infrastructure. Stars like Jackie Chan helped elevate Hong Kong globally through films like Drunken Master, directed by future Crouching Tiger fight choreographer Yuen Wu-ping, and the Police Story series, including Police Story 3, Super Cop, co-starring Malaysian actress Michelle Yeoh. Hong Kong expanded its movies beyond wuxia and kung fu films. Action films directed by John Woo and starring Chow Yun-fat featured gun battles influential on films like The Matrix and Quentin Tarantino. In fact, Tarantino's debut feature Reservoir Dogs was inspired from the Chow Yun-fat starring City on Fire. In the 1980s, Hong Kong's success also empowered more serious festival qualifying films from filmmakers like An Wei and Wong Kar-wai. These filmmakers worked as part of the Hong Kong New Wave. An Wei's Boat People and Love in a Fallen City, which starred Chow Yun-fat, featured stories of human drama, not action. Wong Kar-wai's films often showed the melancholy and longing of characters in love but who feel restricted in circumstances. These films show characters who felt stuck with uncertainty in the Cold War and the upcoming 1997 handover to China. In Chungking Express, a film that's really 2 films, characters wait for someone else to fall in love with them while pretending to be normal. That sense of longing for love permeates in Crouching Tiger. These new wave films created an art house audience in addition to the dubbed action films often found in video stores. In the 1990s, the art house audience also paid attention to films coming from China from the so-called fifth generation of filmmakers. The fifth generation refers to a group of filmmakers who began making films in the 1980s and broke out internationally in the 1990s. Filmmakers like Chen Cage and Yeoh graduated in 1982 from the Beijing Film Academy, the first class that attended after the end of the Cultural Revolution between 1966 and 1976. The destructive Cultural Revolution, initiated by Mao Zedong to forsake traditional culture in lieu of a new revolutionary culture, ended with the death of Zedong. Deng Xiaoping, a critic of Zedong, took over the Communist Party's leadership and initiated new reforms that ranged from opening up its markets to opening up art. While the Chinese Communist Party still censored art and cracked down on democratic movements, the fifth generation of filmmakers found a country somewhat open to challenging and different stories influenced by global filmmakers. Chen Cage made his breakthrough Yellow Earth in 1985. The film tells a story of a young girl bucking rural customs and trying to escape with a Chinese Communist Party agent. These stories of women finding opportunities to rebel and exercise their power, even if the result was tragedy or death, proliferated in films by fifth-generation filmmakers. Zhang and Mo worked with star Gong Li for films like Raise the Red Lantern, about a young woman who serves a man as his fourth concubine or mistress. In this role, she exerts agency in the midst of a tragic and unwinnable situation. These films influenced Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, with Zhang Zi as Jin Yu, the daughter of a government official who wants to leave her arranged marriage for the character Dark Cloud, who she met on the western frontier of China. When the Chinese Communist Party took over China in 1949, after the Chinese Civil War, their opposition, the Republic of China government led by Chiang Kai-shek, migrated to the island formerly known as Formosa and now known as Taiwan. Taiwan, like China, came out of an authoritarian period known as the White Terror in the 1980s, when Taiwanese filmmakers initiated the Taiwanese New Wave. Filmmakers like Edward Yang and Ho Xiaoxin made films about identity, loneliness, and family dynamics in a newly democratic Taiwan. Landmark films like the 237-minute A Brighter Summer Day and Flowers of Shanghai showed stories to a frenetic world unafraid of taking its time. Alongside these filmmakers, Ong Lee, the Taiwanese-born filmmaker educated at NYU, began his first films. Using his cross-cultural knowledge, Lee directed films that played with these boundaries but also more comedic spaces. Films like The Wedding Banquet, about an LGBTQ romance between a Taiwanese and American man, and Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, about a senior chef feeling the effects of his daughter's life, became relative hits in the United States. These films led to Ong Lee making films in the U.S. with Sense and Sensibility, The Ice Storm, and Running with the Devil. After Running with the Devil, Lee chose to leave the United States and direct Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon as his next feature. Adapted from a 1940s novel by Wang Dulu, Crouching Tiger tells the story of people who feel trapped in their position by norms and etiquette. Chow Yun-fat plays Li Mu Bai, a swordsman ready to finish his life in fighting, even giving up his famed Green Destiny sword. Michelle Yeoh plays his friend and comrade Shu Lian, the widow of Bai's friend. Because of this, they feel they cannot act upon their romantic feelings and desire a quiet life together. That tension comes to a head as they chase after a mysterious fighter, found out to be Jin Yu, a soon-to-be-married bride and daughter of a government official who yearns for a boundless life after spending formative years in the western provinces. She receives martial arts training from Jade Fox, played by Cheng Pei Pei, the star of the aforementioned Come Drink With Me. Yuen Wu-ping, choreographer of The Matrix and later Kill Bill, choreographs wire-fu fights in a setting Ong Lee made purposely vague. Rather than specificity, Lee chose to make a film that evokes a, quote, China of the imagination with Western audiences in mind. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon premiered first on festival circuits in 2000, where it received unanimous acclaim, but no one expected the worldwide box office hit of $200+ million. Crouching Tiger came out as the world became curious about China and Chinese culture, and after 50 years of Hong Kong, Chinese, and Taiwanese films coming to theaters and video stores, it broke through because it met and elevated expectations set by these stories while offering something still new to Western audiences.